January 27th, 1984, Los Angeles, California. Shrine Auditorium. Michael Jackson stands at the top of a massive staircase, surrounded by thousands of screaming fans, cameras rolling for what should be the biggest commercial in television history. He's 25 years old, the king of pop, fresh off the success of Thriller, the best-selling album of all time. He's untouchable, invincible, at the absolute peak of his powers. The music starts. Pyrotechnics explode around him. Michael begins his signature moves, descending the stairs, the crowd going wild. The shot is perfect. The energy is electric. Everything is going exactly as planned. Then, at exactly the sixth take, something goes catastrophically wrong. A spark from a pyrotechnic magnesium flash bomb lands on Michael's hair, which has been heavily treated with pomade and gel. Within seconds, his hair ignites. Michael Jackson is on fire, literally, his head burning, and he doesn't even realize it yet because the flames are behind him and the adrenaline is pumping. He keeps dancing for 3 more seconds. 3 seconds that will change everything. 3 seconds that will lead to a painkiller addiction, dozens of surgeries, a transformation so extreme the world won't recognize him, and ultimately his death 25 years later. Michael Jackson survived the Pepsi fire, but the man who walked away from that stage was already on a path to destruction. And it all started with 3 seconds of flames that nobody was supposed to see. This is the story of how a commercial accident destroyed the king of pop. Not immediately, slowly, agonizingly, over 25 years. To understand the Pepsi fire, you need to understand how massive Michael Jackson was in 1984. Thriller had been released in November 1982 and had become a cultural phenomenon beyond anything the music industry had ever seen. It spawned 7 top 10 singles. The Thriller music video, a 14-minute short film, premiered on MTV and transformed music videos into an art form. Michael Jackson wasn't just a pop star, he was a global icon, transcending race, age, and geography. In 1983, Pepsi approached Michael with an offer, $5 million to be their spokesperson and appear in 2 commercials. At the time, it was the largest endorsement deal any entertainer had ever signed. Michael, who was still managed by his father, Joe Jackson, and surrounded by handlers who saw him as a cash machine, agreed. The commercials were designed to be spectacular, massive productions with hundreds of extras, elaborate sets, cutting-edge special effects. The first commercial, directed by Bob Giraldi, would feature Michael performing in front of 3,000 screaming fans at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, with pyrotechnics, dancers, and all the spectacle that defined Michael's performances. Pepsi wanted magic. They wanted Thriller energy. They wanted Michael Jackson at his most electrifying. And to create that energy, they needed fire, literally. Pyrotechnics were a crucial part of the commercial's visual impact. But pyrotechnics are dangerous. They require precise timing, careful placement, and constant safety monitoring. The production hired pyrotechnic experts, but on a shoot this large, with this many moving parts, things can go wrong. January 27, 1984 was the 6th day of filming. They'd already done multiple takes of various scenes, and Michael was tired. He'd been performing the same choreography over and over, wearing heavy costumes under hot lights, surrounded by pyrotechnic explosions. But he was a professional. He never complained. He just kept performing, kept giving them what they needed. For this particular shot, Michael would descend a staircase with pyrotechnics exploding around him at precise intervals. The timing had to be perfect, Michael hitting his marks exactly as the pyro went off, creating the dramatic visual effect Pepsi wanted. They'd rehearsed it multiple times. Everyone knew the timing, the pyrotechnic team had their cues, Michael knew his choreography. It should have been routine. Take 6. The music started. Michael began his descent. The first pyrotechnic charges went off perfectly, creating showers of sparks around him. The crowd screamed. The cameras captured everything. Then, at the moment Michael reached a specific step, a magnesium flash bomb exploded slightly off mark. A single spark, smaller than a pea, landed on Michael's hair, which had been heavily treated with petroleum-based hair products that were extremely flammable. The spark ignited. Michael's hair caught fire. What happened next occurred in seconds, but would be analyzed frame by frame for decades. The fire started small, just a flicker at the back of Michael's head. He didn't feel it immediately because the flames were behind him and his adrenaline was pumping from performing. The crowd didn't notice because they were far away and the stage was full of intentional pyrotechnics. Even the camera operators didn't immediately realize something was wrong because fire was part of the show. Michael kept dancing. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. His hair is fully engulfed now, flames rising 6 inches high, smoke billowing. But he's still moving, still performing, because that's what Michael Jackson does. He performs through pain, through exhaustion, through anything. Finally, someone screams. Michael's brother, Jermaine, who's watching from the side of the stage, sees the flames and starts running toward him. A security guard sees it. The pyrotechnic team realizes their worst nightmare is happening. Michael finally feels the heat. He reaches up to touch his head and realizes he's on fire. The panic hits. He stops dancing and starts running, disoriented, trying to pad out the flames, but the fire is too intense, spreading too fast. Multiple people tackle him, throwing him to the ground, using their jackets and hands to smother the flames. The smell of burning hair and flesh fills the auditorium. Michael is screaming now, the pain finally breaking through the adrenaline, the reality of what's happened crashing down. The fire is out within seconds, but the damage is done. The back and top of Michael's head have 2nd and 3rd degree burns. His scalp is severely damaged. Witnesses later described seeing smoke rising from his head, the hair completely burned away in spots, the skin underneath red and blistered. Paramedics rushed onto the scene. Michael was conscious but in shock, asking repeatedly if his hair was okay, if his face was okay, not fully comprehending the severity of his injuries. They put him on a stretcher, and as they carried him out, photographers captured images that would appear in newspapers worldwide. Michael Jackson, the invincible king of pop, vulnerable and hurt. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. The burns covered a significant portion of his scalp. Doctors immediately began treatment, but they warned Michael and his family. Burns this severe would require multiple surgeries to repair. Skin grafts, reconstructive procedures, months of painful recovery. And, most critically, pain medication. Lots of it.
This is where the tragedy of the Pepsi fire really begins. Not in the flames themselves, but in what came after. Michael Jackson had never been seriously injured before. He lived his entire life in a body that could dance for hours, perform impossible moves, execute precision choreography. Pain was foreign to him. And the pain from severe burns is unlike any other pain. Constant, burning, throbbing agony that doesn't stop. The doctors prescribed powerful painkillers, Demerol, morphine, various opioids. They told Michael these were necessary for healing, for managing the pain during skin grafts and reconstructive surgeries. They told him the pain would eventually subside. They didn't tell him, or maybe they didn't know, that Michael Jackson had an addictive personality, shaped by decades of pressure, perfectionism, and trauma. They didn't tell him that prescription painkillers are designed to be addictive, that pharmaceutical companies had been lying about their safety for decades. They didn't tell him that once you start, stopping becomes almost impossible. Michael took the pills. The pain disappeared, and for the first time in years, maybe his entire life, Michael Jackson felt relaxed. The constant anxiety that had driven him since childhood, the pressure of being perfect, the fear of failure, all of it melted away under the warm embrace of opioids. He liked how it felt, more than liked it, needed it. The physical injuries from the Pepsi fire healed over months. Michael underwent multiple reconstructive surgeries on his scalp. The doctors did remarkable work. The scarring was minimal, the hair grafts successful. By mid-1984, you couldn't tell from looking at Michael that he'd been severely burned. But the psychological damage and the chemical dependency, those never healed. Michael continued taking painkillers long after the physical pain subsided. He told himself it was for lingering discomfort, for headaches, for the stress of performing. But really, he was chasing that feeling of peace, of escape, of being free from the constant pressure of being Michael Jackson. His team, managers, handlers, family members, noticed the change. Michael became more withdrawn, more erratic. He'd always been shy and introverted, but now there were mood swings, periods of intense energy followed by lethargy. He'd show up to recording sessions disoriented. He'd forget conversations. But Michael Jackson was too valuable to confront. The Thriller phenomenon was still generating hundreds of millions of dollars. His next album, Bad, was already in planning. Tours, endorsements, movies, Michael was a one-man entertainment empire. So his handlers looked the other way, made excuses, enabled the addiction because the machine couldn't stop. The other consequence of the Pepsi fire was psychological. Michael became obsessed with his appearance, specifically his hair. The fire had damaged his scalp permanently, creating areas where hair wouldn't grow naturally. He started wearing wigs, elaborate hairpieces, hats. He became paranoid about cameras catching the damaged areas. And he started thinking about plastic surgery, not just for the burn damage, but for everything. If surgery could fix his scalp, could it fix other things? Could it make him more perfect? Could it make him into someone else entirely? Someone who wasn't the person Joe Jackson had mocked and abused as a child? The plastic surgery spiral that would eventually transform Michael's face beyond recognition started with logical, medically necessary procedures after the Pepsi fire. A rhinoplasty to repair damage from the fire's impact when he fell. Then another procedure, then another. Each surgery requiring painkillers for recovery, each painkiller reinforcing the addiction. By the late 1980s, Michael Jackson was caught in a vicious cycle. Surgery requiring painkillers, painkillers creating dependency, dependency requiring more pills requiring more doctors willing to prescribe them, and more surgeries providing the excuse to get those prescriptions.
The Pepsi fire in 1984 didn't directly kill Michael Jackson, but it set in motion the chain of events that eventually would. The painkiller addiction that started with legitimate burn treatment evolved into a full-blown dependency on multiple drugs. By the 1990s, Michael was doctor shopping, visiting multiple physicians to get overlapping prescriptions. He had handlers who would acquire medications under false names. He had enablers who saw his addiction but prioritized his ability to perform over his health. The plastic surgeries continued. Michael's face changed so dramatically that by the 2000s, he was barely recognizable as the young man from the Pepsi commercial. Each surgery required anesthesia, painkillers, recovery time, and each recovery period reinforced the chemical dependency that had started on that stage in 1984. The insomnia that plagued Michael's final years, partially caused by painkiller dependency disrupting his natural sleep cycles. The physical deterioration that made the This Is It tour preparation so difficult, years of drug use weakening his body. The financial desperation that forced him into that tour, millions spent on medications, doctors, and trying to manage addiction. And finally, Propofol, the surgical anesthetic that killed Michael Jackson on June 25, 2009, was just the final evolution of the addiction that started with legitimate pain medication in 1984. Michael had built up tolerance to every sleeping pill, every painkiller, every sedative. His body, after 25 years of chemical dependency, couldn't respond to normal medications anymore, so he turned to Propofol, hospital-grade anesthesia that should never be used outside a medical facility, because it was the only thing powerful enough to give him relief. Dr. Conrad Murray administered that fatal dose of Propofol. But you could argue that the real chain of causation started on January 27, 1984, when a single spark landed on Michael Jackson's hair. Pepsi settled with Michael for $1.5 million, which Michael donated to the Brotman Medical Center burn unit. The commercial was never aired with the accident footage. The incident was treated as an unfortunate accident, quickly moved past by everyone involved because there was too much money at stake to dwell on tragedy. Michael himself rarely spoke about the fire publicly. In interviews, he'd mention it briefly, show the damaged area of his scalp to journalists to prove it happened, but he never connected it to his later struggles. Maybe he didn't see the connection. Maybe he didn't want to admit the vulnerability. But everyone who worked closely with Michael agreed he was different after the fire. The confident, energetic performer became more guarded, more dependent on medical intervention, more isolated from reality. The fire didn't just burn his scalp, it burned through the psychological barriers that had kept him functional, revealing the deep fragility underneath the King of Pop persona. In the final analysis, the Pepsi fire was a tragedy of good intentions gone wrong. The production company wanted a spectacular commercial. The pyrotechnic team did their jobs as trained. The doctors prescribed legitimate pain medication for legitimate injuries. Michael Jackson took the pills his doctors gave him. But good intentions don't prevent addiction. Medical legitimacy doesn't stop dependency. And 3 seconds of fire were enough to start a 25-year descent into the chemical dependency that would eventually kill the King of Pop. Michael Jackson died at age 50, his body ravaged by years of prescription drug use, his face transformed by dozens of surgeries, his legacy complicated by behavior that addiction and trauma made increasingly erratic. And it all traced back to a moment that was supposed to be routine, a commercial shoot, a choreographed performance, a carefully planned pyrotechnic effect. 3 seconds, that's all it took. 3 seconds of fire that Michael Jackson didn't even feel immediately, but that burned through the next 25 years of his life, consuming everything, leaving nothing but ash. On January 27, 1984, Michael Jackson's hair caught fire during a Pepsi commercial. The flames were extinguished quickly. The King of Pop survived. But something else started burning that day. Something that couldn't be put out with jackets and hands. Something that would burn slowly, invisibly for a quarter century until there was nothing left to consume. And on June 25, 2009, the fire that started in 1984 finally finished what it started.
If this story made you think about addiction, the cost of entertainment, and how one moment can change everything, subscribe to Hidden Legends Stories. Leave a comment. Was the Pepsi fire the real beginning of Michael's downfall? Could anyone have stopped the addiction cycle once it started? Who's responsible? The production, the doctors, or the system? Next time, we'll explore another legend whose single moment of trauma shaped their entire life. Until then, remember, sometimes the visible injuries heal. It's the invisible ones that kill.